Support for this episode comes from Modern Football Technology. Modern Football Technology provides real-time opponent tendencies and self-scout while eliminating manual data entry into Huddle, DV Sport, and Exos. If you're tired of tools that are time-consuming to learn and perform inconsistently at best, then we recommend Modern Football for a fresh perspective. Schedule a demo today at teammofo.com to see a battle-tested tool that's proven to perform and deliver value. Mention Coach and Coordinator Podcast or use the coupon code CC10 to receive 10% off your first year. And listen to our recent episode featuring Folsom High School defensive coordinator Jordan Ersick to learn more about how the 2023 California State Champion uses modern football to dominate their opponents.
This is Eric Marty, offensive coordinator of the Michigan Panthers.
Chris Reichert, head football coach at Tiffin University.
Brendan Walsh, offensive line coach at Colgate University. And you're listening to the
Coach
and
and
Coordinator
Coordinator
Podcast.
From a communication between coaches in camp, I think the one thing that you have to be very cognizant of is that, as depth changes start to happen, because they happen a lot more frequently in camp than they do out of camp. And our kind of company line or our staff motto is that, there's no depth chart change that happens in a position meeting without a one-on-one prior to that meeting.
Mike Krzyzewski once said, effective teamwork begins and ends with communication. Clear communication is the key that unlocks the door to success. As the new season approaches and you are gearing up for or already are in an intense training camp, even the most talented team cannot reach their full potential without effective communication. Today we explore why clear and open communication is crucial for coaches during the early stages of training camp. Training camp sets the foundation for team dynamics throughout the season. For coaches, establishing trust with their players is paramount. Open communication fosters an environment where players feel comfortable sharing their thoughts, concerns, and ideas. By encouraging dialogue, coaches can understand their players' strengths, weaknesses, and personal goals, fostering a strong bond within the team. When athletes trust their coach and each other, they're more likely to collaborate, making the team greater than the sum of its parts. Today we hear from 3 coaches and gain insight and ideas on how we can better communicate during camp so that we are setting our team up for a successful season. What you see on tape is a direct reflection of what you teach and how you teach. Video is important, but if you don't teach well, you're not going to like what you see on your video. First Down Playbook has been helping coaches teach better for 13 years. It allows you to present installs, playbooks, and practice cards in half the time with NFL quality. Coaching tools like video pairing, a player app, practice schedules, and wristband sheets have made First Down Playbook a program management system with everything in one place. If you're in a position of leadership with your football program, receive a free 1-week look at First Down Playbook. Call them at 512-814-6158 or visit them on their website or social media. Mention Coach and Coordinator Podcast or use the coupon code COACH24 to receive a $100 discount off the normal $700 First Down Playbook team membership price. Links and the phone number are in the show notes. First up is Eric Marty, who is the offensive coordinator for the USFL Michigan Panthers. He's been a successful head coach as well, taking Reedley College, a junior college in California, from just 10 players to a 10-0 team in just 3 years. Coach Marty understands the importance of clearly communicating. He talks about how they communicate every part of their program expectations through orientations, as well as how he communicates to resolve issues within the program.
I think it starts with before you get into camp, and different levels have different opportunities to work with their guys over or prior to the arrival of camp. Junior college-wise, we had about a month with all our guys in the summer. USFL, it's a lot of Zoom stuff. Division I level, obviously, you have most of your guys over the summer coming in at least for some sort of workout format. So what I've found really beneficial is we would have an orientation, and this is channeling a lot of my junior college head coaching experience, but really everywhere is orientations for everything. And the biggest mistake coaches make as people climb levels is they assume that the player they are recruiting or the player that they're signing have the same value system that they have, and they know what it's like to be at the level they're at. And you may have some guys that come in that played in unbelievable high school or college that prepared them well, and you may have some guys that, you know, they're well-intentioned, but they're just clueless. And so I think you need to do a really good job of educating guys with an orientation of how we sit in meetings, how we come to meetings, sitting up straight, sitting in the learning tee at the front and middle of the classroom, having a pen and notebook out prior to the start. All those different things that, again, depend on different guys' backgrounds. Some guys may know it, some guys may not. But if you make sure that you define what things are really important for you and your program, what are the absolutes and what are the cultural hallmarks you want, and then you go have an orientation for how you do those things, whether it's class, sitting in a meeting, how you practice, weight room etiquette, all those different things. And it doesn't have to be super long or super crazy. It can be a 5-10 minute PowerPoint and a quick walkthrough. The biggest thing I've found as far as getting the energy level and the buy-in and the things you're looking for in camp is make sure expectations are known and clear long before you guys get to camp.
When you do have the situations arise where maybe there's a little conflict, could be between players, it could be, misunderstanding or miscommunication between coaches. You've been a head coach before. How do you address those issues?
Well, it starts with whether or not this is a one-off issue and there's a level of trust with the player or coaches, and it's something that came up and you'll address it and you know that everybody, again, is well-intentioned and you'll move on from it. Or is this a repetitive thing where a certain player isn't practicing right and keeps taking someone to the ground, or a certain coach keeps stepping on the toes of another coach and not showing the professional respect? And so if it's a one-off situation, I think you just be direct about it and you make sure that you get it handled and your team's going to move forward. And if it's something that is a persistent issue, I think you need to make sure that it gets addressed and then gets addressed again. And the second time it's getting addressed, you make sure that there's some known consequences in the future if this type of behavior issues don't go away. And so camp is going to set the tone for offense, defense, special teams, but it's also going to set the tone for your culture. It's also going to set the tone for your assistant coaches. And it's not always fun to have those hard conversations, but that's the cost of leadership. And you get to be head coach or you get to be a coordinator because you're willing to step up and have those difficult conversations, and you got to do it so your team can be as good as they possibly can be and you protect that culture.
As coaches, we know that some of the biggest hurdles to our team's success can come from off the field. Your team needs support to tackle the endless list of expenses, uniforms, training equipment, travel, and more. But raising that money can feel like a full-time job. Thankfully, there's Vertical Raise. Vertical Raise is the premier online fundraising platform using innovative technology to create the easiest and most efficient system available. Raise more money in less time with a local fundraising coach who works with your team every step of the way to customize the ideal fundraiser. With options for online donations, digital discount cards, premium product sales, and even spirit shops, Vertical Raise has top-of-the-line solutions for every fundraising style. To find out more, visit verticalraise.com and we'll get you connected with an exclusive offer on your first fundraiser. Next, we hear from Chris Reisert, head football coach of D2 Tiffin University. He enters his 5th season as the head coach and has a career mark of 29-10 over 4 seasons. He discusses the importance of communication in getting a great start to camp, as well as their policy on communicating depth chart changes.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Keith. For us, it really starts in the summer. Obviously all spring you're stressing, the communication, the relationship piece of it, but we try and kind of continue that throughout summer. I think one of the big things that happens in fall camp, and especially at our level, is trying to make sure it's as fluid a process as it can be, so there's not paperwork and medical forms and balances and all the above that are kind of hanging over your head as you start camp. So we try and have a team meeting, a voluntary team meeting, typically once a month during the summer. And then we also do the same thing with parents. And so trying to make sure that the awareness of what's happening, items outstanding, mindset, obviously you can't discuss football, but you're trying to make sure you're laying the groundwork for a smooth transition and one where guys are seeing each other on a Zoom call once a month. And that's been a really valuable thing. And then while they're here, for us, it's just trying to get as much time about building relationships as possible. So we'll do, obviously at dinner, you're going to sit either with your position group, you're going to sit with a guy on the opposite side of the ball or a guy on your unit. And we have different things where guys will have to ask each other different questions within a position room and all those things. But for us more, it's about just laying the foundation in the summer. And then while they're here, making sure we're not on our phones and we're inundating ourselves to getting to know our teammates. From a coach's perspective, one thing that we do is we have called a Facebook, not very original, but all of my GAs put together basically our roster with each kid's name, position, and where they're from, and then a picture of them. So all my coaches have that, and our job each morning is to get here and study each guy on our team to make sure we know everyone's name and we can have really positive interactions with them.
I love that idea, and that was always the challenge, especially report day, and you have all those new guys coming in, some guys you remember from recruiting, and guys maybe you weren't involved with. So I think that's an important part of it. Looking at the staff communications too, we have these times throughout the year where it's about the competition, right? Whether that's the season, camp, spring, and then the other parts where you do have that a little bit of more laid back time to get to know guys. So the communication dynamics change. How do you ensure that your staff is just staying on top of the communications, keeping it positive, as it becomes a little bit more stressful, guys are vying for positions, etc., and even you think of the coaches' time in camp, the schedule there is pretty squeezed for coaches too, but this is such an important part. How do you guys deal with that?
So a couple of unique things we do. I think, one of the things we try to do is budget more culture time for our newcomers, whether they're incoming freshmen or they're transfers. And so, for instance, we'll have a 7:15 team meeting and 7 p.m. It's going to be freshmen and transfers only and just me. And so it's a way for me to cover, our culture, cover core values, cover traits of a dragon, plan to win, but also it's time to get to know those guys on a little bit more intimate scale and also to answer questions they might have that they're not really feeling great about doing it in front of an entire team. And so that's one thing we try and make sure that for our newcomers that they get acclimated fairly quickly. And that's been a really positive thing for us. I think from a communication between coaches in camp, I think the one thing that you have to be very cognizant of is that depth changes start to happen because they happen a lot more frequently in camp than they do out of camp. And our kind of company line or our staff motto is that, there's no depth chart change that happens in a position meeting without a one-on-one prior to that meeting. And so I never want a kid to walk into a position meeting and learn that he's now a 2 when it might just be us giving another guy an opportunity. But if we haven't communicated that to him, 1, the meeting is going to be lost because he's already in his head. And then 2, you're probably going to lose him at practice and he's not going to be his best. And so we try and over communicate on depth changes, on situational changes to make sure that guys are fully aware of why, and then also what they can do to maybe get back into the good graces if they're out of it.
Finally, Brendan Walsh, offensive line coach at Colgate, explains his process for developing his starting unit. A cohesive offensive line relies on clear, concise communication more than any other position group, and Coach Walsh's process for determining the first unit, as well as getting backups ready, requires that he is a great communicator as well. Let's listen to him describe his process.
The first thing you want to do is give the guys who have earned the right a chance to compete that opportunity. So I think one of the best things that I do is I make a new depth chart for every day. It takes a little bit of organization at the beginning, 2 or 3 days before camp, but I try to give, those upperclassmen have worked hard and those young guys that deserve at least an opportunity to start one day, that chance. I think it really keeps those guys engaged to not have a solid 5 that are the same every day. And I think it allows you to get a great evaluation of each player, at least in that, first week or 2, maybe first 10 days of practice for the season, and it allows me to identify maybe a group that worked really well together, maybe a certain right guard and right tackle did a really nice job communicating everything in these different fronts. And it allows me to kind of see each of the different parts as separate parts, but also see them kind of grouped together, and also allows me to see some of their versatility positionally. So, I might have a guy who, he's been the left guard the whole time, but hey, we've put him at right guard for this one day, and look at this. Like, we have one of our guards. He played on the left side his whole life. He did really well in one of the practices when he was playing right, and I kind of asked him about it, and he goes, "Coach, it allowed me to go from all the stuff I've been doing forever and maybe some bad habits I have on the left side, and it's made me refocus on the techniques that you're teaching on the right." So I think that's one that really allows our guys to all feel like they're getting an opportunity and getting looked at. And instead of having, I've tried the different colored groups that start on a different day, but really just having X number of days that each guy starts gives them that focus, that opportunity that, hey, today is my chance. Like I'm the starter today. Like, let me focus in, let me make sure I'm taking care of business so that I stay as the starter when this 10-day period is up, or I get more starts during these 10 days.
Now, with that, I know every offensive line coach obviously is looking for his top 5, those guys who are really going to gel, work together. There's the chemistry, there's the communication, but you're always preparing for those next guys. And, we've always looked at it as, okay, first we got to find the 6th guy, and then who's the 7th, and who's the 8th, and who's a guy who needs to swing, because you want to avoid those situations where one move, one guy going down ends up being like 3 moves, and now you weaken yourself across the board. So you are now giving these guys different opportunities. You're looking at different groups. How has that helped expedite that process of finding who's going to be those next guys after you gel those first 5?
It has really helped that. And like you said, you really hope that a guy over that time, even the backups, I'll move around to those different positions. So basically when I organize it, I have a list of each of my players. They all see this depth chart and they all see their list. And I prioritize, hey, these are your 2 or maybe 3 positions. All of our freshmen only get 1 to start to keep them mentally simple and keep them kind of straightforward and locked in on learning that piece of the playbook. As sophomores, I usually give them about 2, and then juniors depends, but by your senior year, you should be able to play 3 different positions for us. And some guys are all 3 interior. Some guys are, 2 tackles and a guard. But I can walk out of camp saying, meeting with these guys, or maybe just having a quick conversation like, hey, where do you feel most comfortable? Hey, do you feel comfortable with these couple positions that I put you at? Hey, do I need to move you around? So it does build in that versatility that you're talking about, and it allows them to have more confidence because they've gotten those extra days at those other positions. So now when we do break scouts versus the guys that are going to be staying up by us, I can now start fitting them into those extra positions as those backups.
One thing we can always work on is being a great communicator. We can do that with our players in our position groups, with our units, and with our coaching staff. It is a skill that continuously can be worked on and improved. The teams that make it far ultimately have a strong culture, and the vehicle through which that culture becomes strongest is communication. We wish you continued success for a great start to camp in your season. Be sure to check the show notes and descriptions for links to related episodes from these coaches, as well as resources they've developed. And follow all we're doing at coachingcoordinator.com and on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski.